James 1 by his contemporaries.
By what?
By his contemporaries.
What does that mean?
His contemporaries. People that live with him. Right? So this ain't going by some foolishness, right? Read.
The then Lord Keeper of the Great Seal of England in his sermon at King James' funeral.
He's in the sermon at King James' funeral. Nobody's ever heard of this, but you're going to hear about it today. This is what happened at King James' funeral. Read.
Speaking of Solomon and King James.
Why would he compare King James to King Solomon? Why? Because King James was a representation of the Bible. That's why. Go down right here.
To be changed.
What did he say they're supposed to be?
To be changed.
Hey, them black people need to be changed just like we was chained in slavery.
Bring it up.
This is what Sir Anthony, this is the man you listening to that's talking about King James. He said
All great. All great.
what you got to say about King James? What you got to say about King James? Because you think you got something.
No, but don't he was supposed to miss like idiot, a wild man, giving these convenience.
Somebody give me that King James book too, huh? Yeah, the real one. So King James was insane. Where did you learn that from? I'm about to show you who you learned it from. That same captain, that same lieutenant, that same general, meaning that white man. Okay, I'm about to show you. Right? So the white man ain't teach you this? I'm about to show you. So, okay. We're going to talk about old Sir Anthony Welden. Oh, stop right there.
Read all the highlights.
James 1 by his contemporaries.
By what?
By his contemporaries.
What does that mean? His contemporaries. People that live with him. Right? So this ain't going by some foolishness, right? Read.
Page 10. Sir Anthony Welden, 1648, is a classic example of the Namarese thesis for both his extremism in the preliminary cause.
What?
During the Civil War.
So his extremist cause during the Civil War, right? So this is where all this information that you're blotting out right now, it comes from Sir Anthony Welden, okay? This is what we're showing you right now. All right, read.
In his virulently anti-Stuart history.
Is what?
Anti-Stuart history.
So he extremely lied about anti-Stuart history, meaning what? I'm against the stewardship because King James kicked me out of it. That's what he's saying. Was not King James a steward? Yes. Read.
Coming from an old Kentish family, several generations of his ancestors had held offices in the royal household.
So what does that tell you? Sir Anthony Welden was a white man. He had royal lineage, but he had to listen to a black man and he ain't like that. That's what that just told you, right? Now watch this. Start right there.
This experience proved to be his undoing.
So what?
His undoing.
So now it's gonna tell you why King James, the black Messiah, meaning black king, kicked his behind out. That's what it's about to tell you, right? Read.
For his contempt for that country and its inhabitants provided the inspiration for his satire. A perfect description of the people and country of Scotland. This work was not published until 1659.
You know why it wasn't published until 1659? Because at that time, Sir Anthony Welden started passing all these lies out about people. We're talking about King James right now. Because a lot of people don't think the King James Bible real. A lot of people think King James wrote it, and we showing y'all that them lies about King James came from a so-called white man, Sir Anthony Welden. This is what we're showing you. Read.
But the discovery of the manuscript wrapped in one of the records of the Board of Green Cloth led to Welden's dismissal. This was hardly surprising, for like much of his later work, it is a scurrilous piece of foul-mouthed abuse.
Now let's see what he was saying about black folk, King James people. Let's see what he was saying. Go down right here.
To be changed.
What did he say they're supposed to be?
To be be chained.
Them black people need to be chained just like we was chained in slavery.
Bring it up.
This is what Sir Anthony, this is the man you listening to that's talking about King James. He said they to be chained, go ahead.
To be chained in marriage with one of them. Were to be tied to a dead carcass.
Chain them behind up and had them marry a dead carcass. That's how he looked at us. That's how he looked at King James. Of course King James said, no, we're not doing that. You got to get up out of here. That's the history behind why Sir Anthony Welden was bringing that out. Keep going.
And cast into a stinking ditch.
And cast them what?
Into a stinking ditch.
That's what was going on. But let me tell you something else about King James. So that's the truth. You got to know what you're talking about, brother. You really, really do. I want you to start just right here.
Page 19. The Bishop of Lincoln, the then Lord Keeper of the Great Seal of England, in his sermon at King James' funeral.
He's in the sermon at King James' funeral. Nobody's ever heard of this, but you're going to hear about it today. This is what happened at King James' funeral. Read.
Speaking of Solomon and King James.
Why would he compare King James to King Solomon? Why? Because King James was a representation of the Bible. That's why. I'm going to show you. Start right here.
I dare presume to say you never read in your lives of two kings more fully parallel amongst themselves.
What is a parallel line? So they together. They act like each other. Meaning what? King James was keeping God's laws just like King Solomon. Read.
And better distinguished from all other kings beside themselves. King Solomon is said to be Dignitius Coram Matri Sua, the only son of his mother. Proverbs 4 and 3. So was King James. Solomon was of a complexion white and ruddy.
Meaning what? You watch basketball, right? You watch, what's the guy named the Colonel? You know what I'm talking about, in Germany. He was the Colonel, the top dog at one time. Black brother, but he was real light-skinned. So you watch basketball, you watch sports. Steph Curry, y'all know who Steph Curry is? That's what it means. That was his complexion. He was light-skinned, okay? When they say ruddy, okay? That's what they're talking about, right? Read. Colonel Powell, that's what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. You do, read.
So was King James. Solomon was an infant king. A king at the age of 13 months.
I want you to pay attention to this part right here. Read.
Solomon began his reign in the life of his predecessor. 1 Kings 1:32. So by the force and compulsion of that state did our late sovereign King James. Solomon was twice crowned and anointed a king. 1 Chronicles 29:22. So was King James. Solomon's minority was rough through the quarrels of the former sovereign. So was that of King James. Solomon was learned above all the princes of the east. 1 Kings 4 and 20. So was King James above all the princes in the universal world.
What was he learned there in the scriptures, in the Bible? This is why they're comparing them to. You understand that? That's what happened. So it's like you dying and somebody making up lies about you. That's what's happening. Just like they about to make up a lie about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X in about 60 years if Christ ain't back by then. And they gonna say they was white man. Same thing they said about Christ. The same thing they say about King James. Exact same thing.
What is a nation? Nation is family. Nation is community. Nation is men leading by example. Nation is women's support. Nation is children with role models. Nation is unity. Nation is